The Invest in Her podcast is brought to you in part by Wells Fargo Bank. Hi, I'm Catherine Gray, founder of She Angel Investors and co-founder of the She Angels Foundation. I'm also the podcast host of Invest in Her and an award-winning producer, author, and TEDx speaker. Our show, Invest in Her, features phenomenal female founders and funders. As you know, women receive less than 2% of venture capital funding. Our series is about accelerating the funding of women by connecting them to funding resources. Let's meet today's guest. Welcome to this week's episode of Invest in Her. I'm your host, Catherine Gray, founder of She Angel Investors and co-founder of the She Angels Foundation and producer of the new movie, Show Her the Money. And that's where I met my next guest. We were at a screening in Seattle, Washington, and had the pleasure of meeting her. She is the managing partner of Swizzle Ventures. Let's welcome to the show, Jessica Kamada. Hey, Jessica, how are you?
Great. Thank you so much for having me on, Catherine.
You bet. Wow. I will say that Seattle, Washington screening was on fire, right?
It really was. Yeah, it was amazing to have a great combination of students, angels, and just the community out to support.
It was. I think we had 400 plus people. This was at the beautiful theater at the University of Washington and the Entrepreneurial Innovation Center that they have there. Like you said, such a great mix of people. And I love that students are learning about venture capital. And, you know, here you are, having started your own venture capital fund. You are one of the reasons we made the movie, to shed a light on what I call the unsung heroes of this industry, because you are the women that are out there raising the money to invest in these women founders. And it is definitely a challenge, but we hope that the movie is a tool to help fund managers like you raise money. And I know you had shared with me that the movie did help generate some new investors in your fund. Is that right?
That's right. I think the educational piece behind it just opened the door to curiosity, which if they know, I think if women understand that this asset class exists, then they're more likely to go and pursue and try to understand more about it. So yes, the Show Her the Money film was a catalyst for sure.
I definitely agree with you. And I know, we had dinner the night before. You were sharing what a struggle it was to raise the funds. It's a hard job raising funds for a fund that invests in women founders, only because a lot of women don't understand venture capital. And that's what we're hoping to do with the movie, Show Her the Money, is to show women and men, but our focus is really on getting more women investors, how exciting, how fascinating venture capital is. It sounds boring, but it's not. It's incredibly interesting, exciting, lucrative, impactful, all of those things, which is why I guess you even decided to step into that arena. What made you decide to start your own fund, Swizzle Ventures?
Yes, I think I'll just comment to say that I think for women to start investing, it's both education and awareness, and then it's also access to this asset class, which is huge. And more founders and more fund managers are seeing women as very capable and likely investors that we're now kind of going after as LPs or as angel investors in our endeavors. So yeah, I love that question. And I'll take it back a little bit and speak to my background and why I started this. I'm coming to VC as an operator. So I have been in what I'll call consumer growth. So growing technology companies for the last 15 years or so. I'm originally from Michigan, born and raised outside of Detroit. After I graduated college into kind of the aftermath of the 2008 recession, this little thing called the iPhone was was just getting started. And I was so curious as to how mobile and the birth of this new technology was going to shift consumer behavior. So my first job out of college was at one of the first mobile first consumer startups. Huge learning experience. I was on the founding team and then went to a slightly larger e-commerce company after that. Both experiences were different in their own ways. And I got to really be on the ground level in San Francisco at this time of just booming innovation. And I had a business partner and a former colleague that kind of came to me and said, hey, like, we're seeing a lot going on in mobile right now. We were both working in-house doing digital marketing at companies, working with agencies that were, not very transparent. The truth was that no one really knew what they were doing in mobile because it was such a infantile industry and there was not a lot of foundation going on there. And so we kind of came in and said, hey, like, we're two Midwest kids with a lot of integrity and I think we have some chops and I think we can figure this out. So let's start an agency to be that boutique agency that really knows their stuff, that can work with these kind of brand new mobile first consumer companies. And for us, it was right time, right place, right market.
Boy, I will say, because I read your background and I'm like, wow. I mean, you guys built this bamboo growth marketing agency and had clients like Headspace, DoorDash, Peloton, and New York Times. I'm like, I'm blown away by your background that you helped to generate companies like that, their marketing strategies. And I'm thinking that's got to be invaluable to what you bring to the table with your fund. So, yeah, tell me more.
That's right. Yes, like we were the ones making the sausage, if you will, behind the scenes of these companies at the earliest stages. And we had this amazing roster of clients, which just kind of breeded word of mouth of our work and brought us more amazing clients. And after a while, as you can imagine with that client list, like 5 to 7 years into our agency, those clients started to go public or they started to have amazing outcomes. And we kind of looked around and said, oh, wow, like, it would have been amazing to have some kind of outcome of our own there.
Meaning that you wish you had invested in those.
That's right. We wish we would have had some equity to have that upside.
Totally.
Like we built a very successful services business, but the revenue growth in services business is very linear. The only way to make more money is to, hire more people that can do more work. There's not a lot of levers to change the growth trajectory of a services business, but having equity and investing is one of those. So,
and I would just want to say, when you look at those companies that you were helping to build through digital marketing, Headspace, DoorDash, Peloton, the people that really made the most money were the ones that were in on the ground floor. And that's really what venture capital is. Being in before it even hits the public market, where people may or may not make money or any large degree of money once it's on the public market. And that really is the secret of venture capital, right? Is getting in on the ground floor. And I think it's so cool that as you helped build those companies, that you saw that opportunity and thought, I'm going to start my own fund because I can see that's really where the largest profits are made, right?
Oh, yeah. And I think also being an employee in tech startups and having also a lot of friends who were employees in startups, I think there's also a myth with tech workers that it's like, oh, if you go work at at a tech company that makes it big, you're going to have a big outcome yourself. And that's not true. A lot of times, the only people who make money are venture capitalists who are in the quote unquote preference stack. When venture capitalists and folks that get in early from an investment perspective are always going to make more money or at a higher multiple than those who work there. So I think that was a big realization during that time as well, that really the way to make money in venture is to be an investor.
Yeah, I love that we're educating people on that fact, because I think a lot of people don't realize that. And with Show Her the Money, we're trying to do that, pull back the curtain and say, hey, here's a whole alternative asset class to what your wealth manager is probably recommending. And you should be putting 5 to 10% of that over here in this alternative investment class called venture capital. And with the movie, we tried to make it really simple to understand that it's not that complicated. You go to a fund manager like yourself who is vetting the deals because of your expertise. You can pick the winners and allowing themselves to pool their money with other people into your fund. And then you, as the fund manager, are deploying it into these game-changing companies that are coming around way before they are either acquired or they go public. And that really is the gist of the movie, and letting people know that the barrier to entry is not what they think. I think some people think they have to have millions of dollars to invest in venture capital, when the reality is 25, 50, 100 is the minimum to get into that. Some people even take it from their IRA so that they are diversifying into something that is high risk but high reward. And that's where so much of the money is made prior to it going to the public market. But a lot of people, especially women, don't know about that, don't know they have access to it. And I'm so excited that more women than ever are starting their own venture capital funds. And like I say, you guys, you ladies are the rock stars of this industry, because you're changing it. You're changing the game, and we're letting people, women, know this is an asset class they can actually participate in. And I think then sometimes once they decide to do that, they're like, well, where do I go? How do I find that fund? And that's why we have the Invest in Her podcast, so we can, showcase women like yourself so they know, oh, if I want to invest in some upcoming technologies, Jessica Kamada has the Swizzle ventures that I could invest in. And that's really what this is all about, is letting people know that they have access, where the contacts are, how they connect. And so what is it, Jessica, that you really focus on investing in? Is it tech? And how do you decide who you're investing in?
Yep, that's a great question. At Swizzle Ventures, we're investing in companies that advance women's health and wealth, focused on pivotal life stages. We fundamentally believe that women should be earning just as much or more than men over the course of their lifetime, but there are very systemic reasons why they're not. And so we're investing in the 3 key sectors that are filling those gaps for women: healthcare, caregiving, and financial health. So given my broad growth background, in mostly consumer businesses, I am taking my knowledge of how businesses grow, being inside and operating inside of 12 unicorns at this point, and kind of knowing what they look like at the earliest stages, and bringing that to these key sectors. One other thing that I guess I'll mention that I think is interesting with my agency background is that I'd say 90% of the clients that we worked with were founded by men, whether they were businesses that were made for women or not. And I've started digging a little bit more into that. And I realized that 80% of, businesses that are made for women are actually founded by men, which is astounding. Even though women control, 80% of consumer spending, 85% of healthcare decisions. So you think about like how much more successful a female-led company could be that actually builds for women and optimizes for that female dollar. But
so what you're
they
saying,
need to be funded to be able to grow.
So what you're saying is, and I've heard this, like everything from like tampons to intimate wear for women is coming from companies founded by men who are capitalizing on the fact that women buy all these products, and women should be benefiting from that also. And I see more women getting into creating companies that are, creating products for women. I'm seeing a shift in that because we should be benefiting from it. We're spending 80% of the money on there. We should have 80%. We should have more than 50% of the investments going into those companies and products, and be the ones running it and creating it. So I think we're coming to this realization and awareness that we need to be the founders and the funders, and we're perfectly capable of doing that. And we just have to know how. And that's why I love what you're doing is, running your own venture fund, giving female founders an opportunity to get funded, and giving women an opportunity to invest in those women. Perfect scenario, what you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah. And we're really looking for companies that, have the potential to be billion-dollar outcomes. Right.
I see that. And I wanted to say you use the word unicorns. And for those that don't know what that is, I believe that would be like a privately owned billion-dollar company, right? Like that's the goal.
That's right. And $1 billion value, that's valued at over $1 billion.
Value.
So usually that means a company that is running at about $100 million revenue run rate per year from a size perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, and if your portfolio even picked one or two of those, your investors are going to make a tremendous amount of money. And why shouldn't women be getting a great return on their investments while also impacting the world in a positive way by supporting women founders and helping them build wealth? Like everybody wins, right?
Right. And I'll say, my job is to be a fiduciary, right? Like my job is to make money for my LP investors, my limited partners. The way that I choose to deploy that capital is into 3 sectors that I see the highest economic potential. Like, yes, it's going to be benefiting and this is what the world needs. But part of the reason, that there is such high economic potential, I think it's like over 3 trillion with the 3 sectors that we're focused on. There's such high potential because it's been so underinvested in and under-researched historically. And part of the reason it's been so underinvested in is because the people who have historically run these sectors, healthcare, financial institutions, and caregiving doesn't impact men at all, so they don't care about it, but has been run by men and has been, things have been decided on by men. So if you're shifting what power looks like in those sectors, you can make a whole lot of money. And that's what we're trying to do.
And you can make a whole lot of money, and your money is voting on, well, what does the future look like? What products and services are even out there? And so if we want to benefit our health care and our caregiving and our wealth, then we need to be investing in these women that are creating companies that benefit those sectors, right? And that's the point of what you're doing.
I think women, they know them the best. And that's why they're the best candidates to run these companies.
Exactly.
You asked about my investment criteria. One of them is that the founders had to have felt, quote unquote, pain through the pivotal life stage that they're trying to make a solution for. Like, I think it's really hard for someone to make a product to benefit a market that they have not themselves experienced.
And that's been the problem all along.
firsthand.
How does a man create a company that helps products about menopause if they don't even have menopause? So, that's a situation that is exactly what you're saying. Unless you've actually experienced it yourself, how could you possibly know what the solution is? And, I've done a TED Talk. It's called Fund Women Save the World. And it's about how research shows people tend to invest in people they identify with. And it's why women have been so underfunded. Why did the companies fail? Because they're not getting funding. Women can help solve that solution. Women are coming into trillions of dollars in the coming decade. What are they going to do with it? Why wouldn't they take a percentage of that, put it in women-founded venture funds like yours, and help smart, brilliant women innovators to create products that are going to benefit the women population and the planet at large? Why wouldn't they do that? And so that's the purpose of our tour with the movie, is to educate women about women like you that are starting their own funds that invest in women, why it makes sense, why it's a good financial investment as well as a good social conscious investment. And what better combination than that to utilize our money for, right? So ladies, we have to vote with our money by making these investments in the future. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing. I know you have some pretty high profile investors in this fund. I see you on the WNBA basketball court, and I know you're having fun with this, and that's the key to success, I think, is loving what you're doing and know you're making a difference. And what an opportunity to have you on today and have people learn about Swizzle Ventures. Just curious, Swizzle Ventures, how'd you come up with the name?
Yeah, thank you. There is a sports tie-in into that. So I grew up figure skating in Michigan. It was like, I say that it taught me how to be gritty and graceful at the same time. Did that for about 10 years competitively. And a swizzle is a foundational figure skating move that's made out of pivots on the ice, which coincides with our thesis of supporting women through pivotal life stages.
I like that. I thought it would have a cool explanation. Thanks for sharing that. So, Jessica, where can people find you? I take it you're on LinkedIn?
LinkedIn is the best place to find me. Just by searching my name. And we do have a Swizzle Ventures page as well on LinkedIn.
Great. Well, for those just listening, Jessica spells her last name Kamada, Kamada, and you can look up Swizzle Ventures. Of course, I'm also on LinkedIn, Catherine Gray, Catherine with a C, Gray with an A. SheAngelInvestors.com is our website with lots of resources. Of course, the podcast and our 6 Ways to Fund Your Business e-course for founders. And also, we do have the movie out that we were just talking about called Show Her the Money. You can find that at showherthemoneymovie.com for our schedule, how to screen it, how to see it, and also lots of resources there. Podcasts, books, workshops, events. And we want to get our listeners involved in how do they enter into venture capital, either as a founder or a funder. So thanks for taking the time to tune in. Jessica, thanks for being such a great guest. Remember to invest in her.